Hendrick Avercamp is known for his wonderful winter scenes. In this image, Winter Landscape with Ice Skaters, there are many different figures and each figure has personality. There is something happening in every area of the image, and each time you look, you might notice something different. It's the depths of winter, but it's still full of colour and life. There is so much warmth in the image. There are reds, oranges and pinks. The blue anchors it as being a winter scene, but those warm colours convey life and community. It is a wonderful image, and when you look at the people, it's easy to see each of them as having a story. The image is inspiring. The groups of people are carefully considered. Take a look at the horses pulling the people. There are only 2 of them, but he has placed them on an angle, one going one way and the other going in the opposite direction. Then he gives the sleighs the colours of red and orange so they stand out. You can see the shape that he hints at. The angle going up and the angle going down is in other parts of the image, in the shape of buildings. The positioning of those groups takes the image from being a good composition to being a brilliant composition. If you reduce the whole image into basic shapes, you would see all the triangles. At first glance, you would look at the crowd and think the triangles stop there, but they don't. You've got a partial triangle shape with the sleighs, and it isn't the only example. This red sleigh points to a woman in a red dress, and to the left, below her, there is a man in a red top. Their positioning uses the points of a triangle. He uses these techniques throughout the whole crowd. It's a brilliant use of colour and structure. He has created this warm, loving image of winter. The image has so much personality. It's easy to see ourselves in these people. The child running to a family member, everything is so relevant and emotional. These people could be seen as dots in a larger landscape, but Avercamp makes sure that you see them as people with their own stories. In a lesser painting, the people could just be dots, but that gives me an idea. This image is perfect to be turned into a piece of music. Let's see the people as circles. We can draw lines across the image. These could be the staff lines on a piece of sheet music. It already looks like it has a lot in common with a piece of sheet music. You read sheet music from left to right, so let's begin with the bottom left. This can be our first bar of music. If we thought of these people as musical notes, what type of notes would they be? On the left there is a woman carrying a child. I think they would be best represented as 2 notes joined together. There should then be a space to show the distance to the other child running to the person with arms stretched wide. The child should be represented by a short note. The adult on the right could be seen as a longer note. He is also carrying some weight, and that could be symbolized by a dot. We could make it a dotted note. A dotted note is held for slightly longer, and that would be suitable to show this person's movement. Let's hear how that would sound. I also want to create a piece of abstract art as part of this project. I want to begin with the same part of the image. I want to take these people and convert them into abstract shapes. One painting can inspire many things. This is a process of simplifying each figure, so there is only a hint of what it once was. This part of the image can be the first bar in a piece of music and the first layer in a piece of artwork. Moving to the right, we have our next group of people. That person in the top left is carrying something. He'll be a while, so let's give him a long note to represent his movements. We know where to position the notes vertically because we've already drawn our staff lines. There is a space, then another person, and then in the top right there are two people in close proximity. We'll join them together even though there doesn't seem to be a relationship between them because they are both facing in different directions. Let's listen to how that sounds. I want to turn these people into abstract shapes. I've chosen to depict 3 of the people because I felt these were the most interesting shapes. Although this image is just one layer, let's add it to the previous layer that we created with the previous bar. The simple shapes are becoming more complex through the use of layering and transparency. These are important tools for any artist, particularly those who want to create abstracts. This will be our 3rd bar of music, and it's a lot of people, so it will be a lot of notes. They will need to be short notes to fit in one bar. Avercamp has painted these figures so they are parallel groups of 2. When we convert this to notes, they will become chords. A chord is just multiple notes being played at the same time. We already know the positions on the musical staff, so let's hear how those chords sound. They sound lovely. Avercamp has positioned the people in an aesthetic way. He is placing his people in a pattern because as an artist he is also viewing them as dots of colour. And when you have dots of colour you want to create a pattern. Music and sheet music is also focused on patterns. So when I play the spacing that he's chosen in the painting, they sound good. You could say that when I've turned each person into a dot that has influenced the spacing, but I was mindful about that. When I placed circles on each person, I chose the torso, so it would maintain the spacing that Avercamp chose. I also made sure the staff lines were equal distance from each other. I did this because I have confidence in Avercamp's skills when it comes to aesthetics. He has created patterns, and if I play the sound of those patterns, then it will sound good. Again, I've turned the people into simplistic abstract shapes. This 3rd bar of music will be the 3rd layer in this piece of artwork. Each simple shape is interacting with other simple shapes to create greater complexity. In some ways, this is the foundation of every piece of artwork that's ever been created. When people learn to draw realistic images, they don't draw the object, they focus on the shapes. These 2 people will become our 4th bar of music. 1 bar, 2 notes. The people are in very different poses, so I want to use different note types to convey the difference. We know where to place the notes on our musical staff. Let's have a listen. The shape of these people has led to some interesting abstract forms. There is so much movement and shape to each person's pose. This kind of process wouldn't work if the figures were all static and lifeless. It is possible because Avercamp is such a brilliant artist. I can now add those abstract shapes as another layer to the piece of abstract art that I'm creating. It's starting to look crowded, which you would expect given that it is inspired by a painting of a crowded scene. This is our next group of people. There are many people, and I'm not going to include the people in the top right. I think the spacing would produce a good sound, but I know that this artwork can lead to many different pieces of music. it doesn't have one sound, it has many. You can't explore everything in a single project, but I can explore one pathway. These are the people I'm going to look at, and they will indicate where the notes go. Avercamp does a wonderful job of observing human interactions. Look at this woman. Her posture says, "Come on, we're off." She looks like she's about to drag her companion to do something he doesn't want to do. Perhaps he doesn't want to be on the ice. She doesn't look back to see the expression on his face. You get the impression that there isn't any compromise to be had. It's so easy to see a story in every corner of this painting. I've turned these people into abstract shapes. That woman has become an inverted triangle, heavier at the top because she's about to move forward. The shape of each person tells a story, and some of that becomes lost when it's abstracted. But that's only to be expected because abstraction involves a process of simplification. Although through layering we are adding complexity to the process, transparency also adds greater complexity. When two simple shapes are layered, it creates new shapes. There is a group of well-dressed people stood in a huddle while an elderly person in poverty holds out his hand. When I look at the placement of the circles, the person's position is slightly to the right of the two figures beneath him. He could have been portrayed as a tiny note in between everything else, but that would have made the note more noticeable. In the image, the figure is ignored, so it makes sense to portray the person as part of a larger chord. Avercamp captures different power dynamics within different social interactions. The picture is layered with interest, and you could never appreciate its brilliance with a quick glance. Avercamp's painting rewards deep concentration and investigation. Again, I've explored the shapes through a process of abstraction. This will be another layer in the image I'm creating. It looks like a crowded scene. At some point I will take more control of the level of complexity. At the moment it is slowly becoming more chaotic, but that isn't a problem. We can always add greater simplicity at a later stage. These people will become bar 7 in our piece of music. I'm just going to turn these people into musical notes. I've abstracted the people, and that triangle in the top right is the sleigh. It follows that shape. Then in the bottom half of the canvas, you can see the same shape flipped. It's slightly smaller than the first. That shape is the shape of the hay that is carried by the figure. When you use abstraction and you're simplifying content, you become more aware of the ways Avercamp has balanced the composition. The sleigh curves one way and the hay curves in the other direction. Viewing Avercamp's work is a masterclass in composition. I can now add this layer to the rest of the image. It's becoming more complex. These people will become bar 8 in our melody. I've simplified the shapes and I've kept the pole that the man on the right is carrying. When I add the layer to the rest of the image, it adds even more complexity. This will be the last bar in our piece of music. This is the very bottom right of the image. It will be the last 3 notes of the melody. 2 notes close together and then a space before the note on the right. Even though it's the bottom right of the image, I haven't kept the same position when I've abstracted the people. The abstract shapes are on the very left of the canvas. This is because I felt it was important to balance the composition, so I have been arranging each layer so that the complexity is evenly distributed across the canvas. Even though I have been balancing the complexity, it is still too complex in some areas. I want to highlight the most interesting aspects of these shapes. Adding that simplicity is starting to make the image more interesting. We can now start adding colour to the image. I've begun with purple and the complementary colour of yellow. There is also orange on the canvas and it is asking for blue. I've also added a simplistic curve of blue to add more simplicity to the structure. Adding black and white to the image really increases the intensity of the image. I then added an orange curve to add simple structural aspects to the composition. Here is the finished piece of artwork. Let's return to the melody that we created from Avercamp's wonderful painting. We now have 9 bars of music. Let's listen to how it sounds. It's a lovely melody, and I was thinking about Hendrick Avercamp, and suddenly my brain started thinking Hendrix, Hendrix, Hendrick, Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix. My mind started thinking about rock music and it got stuck there. I then began thinking about what this melody would sound like played on a rock guitar with high levels of distortion. Let's listen to how that sounds. I don't actually play guitar, So I used Ableton Live to create the sound of this lead guitar. I created 2 effect racks. One is heavier with distortion and the other has a cleaner sound. I added a macro labeled clean and dirty, which would then allow me to blend the 2 sounds together. And I used automation to choose how much distortion I wanted to hear and when. It gave me a rock sound, but I then wanted to go beyond that. I then went back to Sibelius First to add other parts to this piece of music. I know that I could have wrote the other parts in Ableton Live using MIDI, but I've gotten to the point where I enjoy working with both. Let's listen to how this sounds on piano before incorporating the rock guitar. I then exported the MIDI and inputted it into Ableton Live. I added a drum beat and then I altered the rhythm of the bass so it would have a stronger link to the drums, but I still wasn't pleased with the outcome because I wanted something with more repetition. So I shifted the bass up an octave and made it part of the melody, and then I added a new bass line. I tamed the levels of distortion to give the guitar a cleaner sound. I did this because I wanted it to fit better with the other instruments. Let's listen to the finished piece of instrumental music.